So the first question is, what are some things that got you interested in filmmaking?
I started when I was about 12 years old, and my very first project was shooting time-lapse of a bean. But it was with a camera that didn't do time-lapse, so I stayed up all night for a couple of nights, and every few seconds or every few minutes I pushed the button. And I borrowed the camera from our local high school, and I processed the film myself in the basement, had no idea what I was doing. So when I took the camera back to the coach, he said, well, you know how to use the camera now. Why don't you start filming football games and basketball games? Okay, I don't know anything about football or basketball. So he says, well, now you filmed the game, go process it. And the local TV station had film processor. And after about the second time, the guy that would process it says, I don't have time to do this anymore. You're going to do it. So he taught me how to process film. And before I knew it, I was shooting news film and airing stuff. I think I had my first thing aired on television when I was 14, 15, somewhere in there.
Oh, that's so cool.
But it got in my blood. So I never could stop shooting video or film. It's a passion. I don't know.
Yeah. I started filmmaking when I was like 12 years old too. I made like Lego stop motions, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, those are so much fun to make. So when you made your time lapse of the bean, was it like a bean growing or?
Yeah, it was a bean growing. It was for a science fair project.
Oh, that's cool. That sounds like fun.
Oh, it was. And since then, I've done an awful lot of time-lapse stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I love time-lapse.
Yeah, the other night I took a cool time-lapse on an iPhone of the sunset, and it was so cool to see, like, the sun setting, like, the clouds moving, you know? Yeah. How long did you have to take the time-lapse for to see a bean grow into a plant?
Well, I think it took 4 days or so.
Okay.
And by that time, and I remember my grandmother would come in and push the button occasionally if I'd fall asleep. So it's been a good, film and video production has been very good to me.
Yeah.
What could be better than doing something you love to do? I've never gone to work a day in my life. I go to play every day.
Yeah, I like that philosophy. Yeah, so how did you like break into the film industry?
Well, after I worked at the television station, I went to school. That was long before you could get a degree in filmmaking. Well, I think you could at UCLA. But I went to school in Provo. And my reason for going there was not so much that I wanted to go to school, but they had a motion picture studio. And so I went to work at the motion picture studio and went to school on the side, but I was a full-time student. But my heart was really in the film production, and I had mentors there who taught me. Well, they worked me through every department, through editing and the sound recording and the camera and the grip and everything. I had a great experience there.
For my fourth question, how would you recommend someone start a career as a filmmaker for someone like me who's trying to like break into the industry, I guess?
I'd recommend 2 or 3 things. Find a job where you can work in something. Television stations, there are people in Boise area or anywhere that you can go to them and say, hey, I'll be a free PA for you, production assistant for you on a show if you will let me join you on a set. And they're going to watch you and they're going to say, this kid wants to work, and they'll hire you. If you're going to the college route, then I would probably try to get on with somebody wherever you're going to go to college. Local TV stations have really good opportunities. I don't know how much they hire now for younger people, but that used to be a great way to start to get into it. But you kind of have to put your dues in, and you walk up to some film guy and say, hey, let me come and work on one of your sets. I'll do it for free for the first time. And then you work your tail off, and they'll hire you because they're always looking for good people. Now, that's not a guarantee, but so far it's worked for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And find a mentor. Find someone who works in the industry and pick his brain for everything you can. Just listen to him and ask him questions and learn from a mentor, because and a lot of times a mentor will be able to help you get into the industry.
Okay.
Because they know people.
So, like, basically you gotta, like, get to know people and then kind of, like, work your way up?
Yep.
Is that, okay. Yeah.
Now, the other route is you can go to college, go to university. Okay, there's BYU and Utah Valley. BYU, and they both have film schools. BYU teaches you the book learning and the philosophy of it. Utah Valley, if you want to actually work in the industry, that's where you want to go. A lot of people say, I want to go to UCLA, or, they'll want to go to the big name schools. Right now, I would put Utah Valley as one of the best film schools anywhere around. And it's affordable. It's a good school.
Yeah, and especially starting out in Utah sounds like a good idea, because I've heard the film industry there is pretty good, especially with like BYU TV and the church and like.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of shows. Disney shoots a lot of stuff there. If you end up down in that area, one of the guys that works on the film festival is a freelance there, and he's really good at mentoring young people. So he would, when he finds out your interest, I'm sure he would, and even if you don't go to school there, I can arrange that you can go down and go on a set, I think. I think we could figure that out so you could see what it's really like. Because until you sit on a set or watch them work on a set for a day, it's really hard to imagine. And it'll do one of two things. It'll either make you or break you. You'll say, I don't want anything to do with this, or I can't wait to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've worked on an 8-man, like, small film festival movie once. I don't know if you've heard of I-48. It's like H-48. It's a horror movie film festival here in Idaho.
Yes.
Yeah. So last year I worked with a director named Cody Newton, and I got to be the camera B operator, and it was super fun because I got to use like a Blackmagic cinema camera. And
there you go.
Yeah. It was so cool.
Okay, so you've already started the right steps.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're making the right moves.
Yeah, my goal right now is just to kind of get to know as much people in the community as possible so I can, like, kind of work my way up, so to speak, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, you're spot on.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, yeah. Are you ready for the
Sure,
fifth question? All right, so what do you do day to day as a filmmaker?
I'm an independent filmmaker, and you'll have to understand a little philosophy here. I used to commute between Idaho Falls and Los Angeles, so I do a lot of work in Hollywood. And I elected not to live in Hollywood because that's not where I wanted to raise my family.
Mm-hmm.
The environment there is just, But the guys at the studios would say, why don't you come down here? Move down here. You don't, that commuting business is ridiculous. But I could fly out of here and be to work or to the studios faster than the guys that commuted because of the traffic there. And then it all turned around, and that instead of saying, why don't you come down here, when I'd talk to them and say, if you ever have any openings, we'd really like to move out of here and would love to move to Idaho. Because it's changed.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can live anywhere you want to. Now, I work with small crews, and the parts that I do, well, I do it all, actually. Sound recording, camera, editing, writing. Actually, my wife does the writing, where she owns her company. I'm an avid editor. I'm a certified avid user. Which, if you're going to edit films for the church, that's a requirement. You have to be certified by Avid, and the courses are incredibly difficult.
I bet. In Videotech, we had to do part of the Adobe certification course, That was so difficult. It was like learning a different language,
Yes, I do know that.
Yeah. All right. So, what has been your greatest, achievement or, the thing you're most proud of as a filmmaker?
Oh, wow. Well, I did a film on geothermal energy. And filmed literally across the United States, and a lot of it was in Yellowstone because of the geothermal activity there. Handed it over to the client, and I didn't know what happened to it. And I was filming in Orlando, and after I would finish a project, then my family would fly in and we'd go do things wherever, whether it was Orlando or Washington or wherever. And so we went to Epcot Center. And we went into one of the theaters to watch a show. And I looked on the big screen, and it was my show that they were showing at Epcot Center.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I guess that's one of the, and I had no idea. Nobody ever told me. What else? Teton Dam collapsed in 1976. And fellow I worked with and I, with we were each in our own separate airplanes, circling the dam as it collapsed.
Whoa.
And any time you see the Teton Dam footage, it's always that, it's our footage that was of the collapse.
That's cool. Were you filming it from a little helicopter? Or?
No, fixed wing.
Oh.
Just a small aircraft.
Uh-huh.
Which I had rented the plane for the afternoon. I was just going to go up and fly a little bit that afternoon. When I went up, when we heard that the dam was collapsing, I thought, I've already got a plane rented.
Better get the camera and film it,
Yep, get the camera and go.
Yeah.
What else? I guess those are a couple.
Yeah. That's so cool. So what advice would you give someone who is trying to join the career field?
I think that goes back to the mentor.
Yeah.
And doing what you've done, where you go out and work on a set. And always put in just a little bit extra.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll notice that. They'll see that you're not afraid to, if there's an extra cable that needs to be drug out, or somebody's hauling equipment and you go over and help them. Now that's not on a union set. I hate working on union crews. I've done that a few times, and I absolutely hate that. I don't care for theatrical film production. That's kind of not my thing. My work's more on the Discovery, Learning Channel, Food Network kinds of things, as opposed to doing theatricals. And I don't mind working on theatricals. I just don't like the big crew, because if you're a film loader, That's what you do. You load film all day long, and that's it. Clean the camera, load the film. Stick your hands in the black bag, load the film. Because it's so compartmentalized, they're only, your job restriction is so tight. So if a cameraman picks up a cable, you get chewed out the first time, and then after that they get really nasty.
Yeah.
And I can't not do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my video tech teacher, I forgot what film he worked on, but he's worked on a bunch of films like Dumb and Dumber and like a bunch of other films, but he one time, I forget exactly what he did. He was like a gaffer or something like that. He was running wires to the lights and stuff. And one time over the walkie-talkie, he says, "and cut," during one of the scenes, and the director fired him on the spot.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they were on a location shoot in the middle of the desert in Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he said he kind of just had to awkwardly, live in his car there for, 3 days before they ended their shoot there and could leave.
Yeah, that's... Yeah. And there are a lot of directors who go at it as a power trip.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very sad thing. I believe that if you're going to be a director, you should have worked in every area. You need to know as much about the sound recording as the sound guy.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know as much about the lighting as the lighting guy. You need to know camera work. Otherwise, how are you going to tell them, I want this kind of lighting, or here's the angle I want? And I think that tends to humble some of these directors when they, if they've grown up through that course of events, because then they know they've got a feeling for how much work it is, as opposed to somebody that goes to school and becomes a director, becomes high and mighty.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that director wasn't any better than anybody else on the set, was he?
Uh-huh. Yeah, so how much would you recommend, learning about different subjects in filmmaking? Because I want to mainly gear towards cinematography, because for me it's, all about the cameras and stuff. I like getting shots and stuff. So would you recommend, even though I want to get into, cinematography and that kind of stuff, would you still recommend me maybe study lighting and that kind of stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Because to do cinematography, the thing that you're doing is you're capturing little images of light.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you know how to control light, the better off you'll be as a cameraman.
Yeah.
Or as a director of photography. So yes, absolutely. And it doesn't hurt to work in the other areas too. You'll be a better cameraman if you've worked on the grip department.
Yeah.
Toting and hauling equipment. So, yes, that's one thing I do. We live in an age that you can actually go online and get some pretty good stuff. One of the other things that I would highly recommend is watching a lot of shows. Watch a lot of films. And it's okay to use somebody else's idea. Lawrence of Arabia or Psycho or all the classic films. If you watch them and analyze what the cinematographer has done and why, you'll gain some really great experience. Beethoven, the composer, used to say that good guys who wrote music, good composers, would borrow stuff. Great composers would steal stuff. So it's okay to take somebody else's idea and build on it, and you'll be surprised. You'll come up with something better than they did. But it's okay to watch and see what they've done and why they've done it, and the way they move the camera and why, what motivated the move.
Right. So I should like try and study out like how other like the best of the best are trying to make their films, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Go to AFI Best 100s, and they've got lots of Best 100 lists now. But if you pick some of the top shows that have won Best Cinematography or Best Editing, because as a cameraman, you need to know what the editor's going to need. So watch things that have won for Best Editor.
Okay.
That way you'll start getting an idea of, okay, here's how they've stitched this together. So if I work as a cameraman and I shoot the shots that the editor needs, we're both going to look good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. All right. And then kind of for my last question, how would you like recommend like someone my age who's like 17 turning 18 years old in the next month, how would you recommend me getting onto like a film set, like a professional film set?
You talk to somebody like me that can get you on them.
Okay.
And if you want to go to Provo, Salt Lake, all you have to do is let me know, and I'm pretty sure I can get you on a set.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I've been talking to like a bunch of people, like my uncle who does sound, and he's been trying to get me, because he knows the president of like BYU TV studios, you know? He's been trying to get me on the set, I guess, but yeah, it doesn't seem very fruitful recently. But yeah, that would be awesome.
Yep, that's. I'll put you in touch with Josh.
Okay.
And he's a working guy that goes out and does grip and production management and directing, and he's very, very good at lighting.
Right.
In fact, he started working with me when he was 13 or 14, I guess, was the first time he showed up on my doorstep.
Oh, man.
Literally, he showed up on my doorstep,